What's going on, ladies and gents? This is Bento with another Steam controller playtest, and this time I'm going to be trying it out on Half-Life 2. So I figured, it's Valve's baby, and kind of wanted to give Half-Life 2 a try again. And I think it's actually really cool, especially if you want to give the Steam controller a playtest for the first time. I think Half-Life 2 is one of those games that's worth trying it on, or even worth trying something to practice on. So let's get into what my control scheme is. My left trigger is basically my right click, so I can pick up stuff, and this time I'm just using the gravity gun. The right trigger is the left click, which is to shoot in this case. The left and right bumpers are actually to switch weapons, and this is kind of like your scroll wheel ordeal. You can always change that whenever you want though. The left trackpad, I actually have it as the touch menu. Now, something interesting I did was I decided to actually set icons for the touch menu. So normally they'd be numbered like this way, but just as an example, I have icons for like the melee, the gun, the pistol, and the submachine gun. And in order to actually do this, all you have to do is go to the touch menu, and then when you go under the functions of what those buttons do, you can select an icon over here, and you can pretty much just select whatever category you want: machine gun, LMG, whatever you want. There's a whole range of stuff you can add. Obviously, it doesn't really cater to everything, but it caters to as much as possible. And the nice thing too is that you can actually set the color, the background color. Valve was really nice about doing that too. So that's the left trackpad. My right trackpad is just my typical mouse aim, and it is a mouse style of input. The grips I actually have for the left is a crouch button, and this time it's actually crouch to hold, so I have to hold it all the time. The right is a jump. The face buttons are kind of typical of most FPS games, where the Y button is a flashlight. The B button in this case is actually my use, and I actually also have that tied to the right trackpad click, although you just don't see it right now. The X button in this case is to reload, and the A is just jump again in case someone needs it. The left thumbstick is obviously to move, and I do have it on sprint, but because Half-Life 2 doesn't exactly have toggle to sprint, it's kind of hard to do with the controller, so you actually have to hold it all the way, or hold it while you're running, so you can't just tap it once, and then otherwise you won't be able to use it. And I do have motion control on just for added aiming as well, because it's just nice to have. And I think that's about it. The left select button is just tab, but you don't use it here. The right is my escape, so if I need to go back to the main menu. That's pretty much it. So let's show you guys some actual gameplay. So overall impressions with the Steam controller in Half-Life 2 are very good, actually. I guess maybe because it's Valve, both their controller and their game. That being said, though, I think it's worked beautifully. And I think the Steam controller has really worked well with just about every game I've happened to come across. I've yet to find that one game it just sucks for, but as far as I can tell, working really, really well. This level, in case you guys don't know about Half-Life 2, is called We Don't Go to Ravenholm, and it's kind of like the best way to describe it is like the zombie-esque level. And it's actually meant to, at least from my playthrough, it's meant to teach the player a bit more about the gravity gun. And the gravity gun is if you just saw that orange little gun that picks up objects and it tosses them at enemies. So I thought it'd be cool because the gravity gun is pretty much a core part of Half-Life 2. I think it works wonderfully with the Steam controller because you get to use motion controls. So it's kind of like you're actually, well, I might be a little kid over here, but it's like I'm pretending to pick up the object and then tossing it at the enemies. But I guess it just makes the game a little more fun in that regard. But for every other gun, like the pistol, the crowbar, the submachine gun, and the combine gun, I think they all work wonderfully, and they all aim very precisely. Something I also had another fun with, it's not really going to show here, but I did actually do it, is that you get to maneuver the rocket launcher using the motion control. And I thought that'd just be pretty cool because it is a laser guided, and so you kind of have to use your camera movement to actually move the rocket. And so using motion control felt pretty fun. I may have already mentioned this in one of my previous videos, but in some games where they won't allow you to toggle crouch and you kind of have to hold it down, I think with the Steam controller it works. At first it kind of feels weird because you're holding the grip button, like you're kind of holding it tightly. So you're pretty much doing that all the time if you want to crouch. But you do eventually get used to it. Obviously if you want to toggle, you can leave it on, but in the case of Half-Life 2, since there is no toggle, you kind of have to work with holding the grip all the way. I think maybe something I could have done was add jump to the right trackpad instead, and that way I can map sprint to either one of the left or right grip buttons, and that way I can just hold it down without having to hold the left stick down all the way. But that's just up to personal preference. I just thought about it because in my Psychonauts video I had it to the right. I had jumped to the right trackpad, and that's primarily because it just makes traversing a lot easier. That way I can use the right trackpad camera while I'm jumping. But again, that's just all up to personal preference.
Another life to save? I'll keep my eye on you. I cannot promise.
I've almost had no issues in terms of control-wise, other than the fact that certain buttons you can't really toggle. But that being said, I mean, getting used to crouch, getting used to sprinting isn't really that bad, but it will be, if you are a little picky about that, it may be an issue. I think another thing to note about Half-Life 2 is that sometimes you actually need to press numerical keys twice in order to access other guns. So if you want to access the Magnum, for example, you have to press 2 twice, because when you press it once, it only accesses the pistol. And I think the track menu for the left trackpad, or right if you were so inclined to, does a good job in doing that. If you want to do a double-click mode shifting, I don't think it works extremely well. And that's because you kind of have to press it like 4 times, and that might be a little fatigued on your thumbs. So I think the track menu works very well for this game. I think aiming with the motion control using the grav gun honestly makes Half-Life 2 sort of worth revisiting just to be able to do that. Not to mention cutting zombies in half if you're so inclined.
Well done, brother. Make free use of my traps, but take care not to fall in them yourself. Behind you! In Ravenholm, you do well to be vigilant.
So that's pretty much it, guys. I definitely recommend Half-Life 2 if you do have the Steam controller. But thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all next time.